Welcome everybody. What I want to do to start is just go through where we see these. By the way, if you were on the call, was it Tuesday? This is exactly the same thing, nothing new, unless you had a question you forgot to ask the other day. So go on to the next slide, please. So what I want to do is just put into perspective for our vision of the CAE program, the things that we put in this solicitation, and kind of explain what we're thinking in plain language. And then if you have questions, we'll take questions and answers when I'm finished. This only took a few minutes the other day, so I think we were here just about an hour on the dot because Alice bet me I couldn't. Last year, you're all well aware that we launched a K-12 effort, and that team has already been working. And when we talked about our strategic planning back last fall, K-12 was one of the things on our list. So our intention with these four initiatives is to round that out. Since we launched the program last fall, we become aware of a few gaps. Number one, and number two, since it was a 2-year grant, the team is spending this academic year preparing all the materials and getting ready with the intention to launch in the fall of 21. And if we don't add to that grant this year, the program will have 1 year of academic offering, and then the students won't have anywhere to go. So the number two, increased ring capacity, is really intended to continue the program through academic year 23, add some capacity for the numbers of students that can be handled, perhaps hiring additional teachers, whatever is needed to expand the capacity of the current program. We want to ensure that whatever is done under this year's grant is fully integrated with what is already going on. And I think it's very important to maintain the image of the program as part of the national CAE program with one entry place, because we don't want to create confusion amongst students, teachers, and administrators about where they go to participate in any of this. We don't want to give the appearance of having 3 or 4 different initiatives. We want to keep it branded as a national CAE effort. That's why in the solicitation, I think we made it clear that this has to be integrated into what's currently being done. In terms of writing new curriculum, the current curriculum is aimed at the upper high school grades. I want to emphasize that with our K-12 pipeline, we are looking at college prep. Some of the things that our partners at CISA and perhaps Department of Ed are doing are broader, and our lane is post-secondary education. So what we're doing is offering educational opportunities to students who are potentially interested in building a career in cyber, hopefully to move them into one of the CAE schools. So the current initiative is looking at how do we work articulation agreements, how can we get dual credit for the students. If you're not completely aware of what the current program is doing, you can go to the website and view last fall's webinar. I think John Sands and Tommy Morris did a great job of briefing what they're currently doing with the existing grant and kind of their vision of how this will all roll out. And so what we want to do is add curriculum, kind of do a backwards integration. And so that when we get to the end of this term, we will have curriculum and out-of-school activities that students from 8th or 9th grade through high school can participate in, get credit for. Um, the high school teacher development initiative is intended to help develop teachers across the nation who can teach perhaps ring curriculum, because one of the things that this program is being developed so that it can be imported into high schools if they want to adopt it. And so students can either participate online through Ring, or they can, the teachers in the school systems can import into their systems. So we want any teachers that we help learn about cybersecurity to be able to be conversant in Ring, but we also want them to be aware of Teach Cyber, cyber.org, and some of the other resources that are out there, because there are states and our communities that are already adopting some of those programs, and we don't want to get away. We don't want to get in the way of those programs. We want to help supplement what's already going on. We see this as a collaboration opportunity with the Gen Cyber program. We are making, if any of you saw the Gen Cyber solicitation that's currently going out, we're expanding Gen Cyber to have more year-round activities, and we don't intend to integrate the CAEs and Gen Cyber, but we do want to keep all of our initiatives and our efforts working collaboratively and in line with each other. So potentially a student could go to Gen Cyber, get interested, and then move into the Ring project and move back and forth between the programs during their high school career. The last effort is we want to assist in getting states to adopt what we're doing within their state education programs. So if you've ever worked in K-12, you should be acutely aware that every state has their own rules. They have their own rules for teacher certification. They have their own rules for curriculum and how curriculum is developed. And because one of our desires is that students who are participating in the Ring program can have dual credit opportunities or articulation opportunities. The articulation opportunities will be more up to us, because that will be a matter of the CAE schools accepting the work that the students have done as part of Ring. But where we want to offer dual credit, where a student could potentially get college credit and high school credit for the course, it's going to be up to the states to accept those credits towards high school requirements. And so that last number 4 is really to help ensure that the states are adopting or acknowledging and accepting the work that this project is developing. I think I covered all of that. The other part of the teacher preparation or teacher development is that we want to make sure, one of the reasons that we are offering those grants regionally is that we want to ensure that not only are the states accepting of the Ring project and the Ring curriculum, but we also want to make sure that any work with teachers being done is within line of what the states require for teacher credentialing. And then eventually, we want to look at, Moraine Valley is developing some really exciting out of class activities with gaming and some of their other opportunities. And so in the future, we may want to look at things like credentialing and increasing capacity and see how this program evolves. You all know that I can't predict necessarily year to year how much money we're going to have to spend And so I'm not making any promises for future development, but I think that this pipeline effort has great potential to have a huge impact on the nation and to demonstrate the power of the CAEs in terms of helping the nation address the workforce issues. So let's go to the next slide, please. So the fifth initiative has to do with expanding the knowledge units. And you all should be aware that for several years, University of Houston, Art Conklin has been working on managing the KUs, working with the program office to come up with a standardized format to massage all of our current KUs into the same format and kind of a standardized approach. And they've been maintaining a wiki where you all can come in and make recommendations on changes. And then once a year, we look at those proposed changes and we adopt a new list. What I'd like to do is take a more proactive approach with this. And instead of waiting for people to make suggestions, we want to form a KU committee who's to do a couple of things. The first thing would be to take a look at what we've currently got, compare that with workforce requirements like the NICE framework, potentially the DoD guidelines on workforce, anything else that's out there that is a definitive guide on workforce requirements, and then do a gap analysis and tell us where are we missing knowledge units. Some of the newer technologies and processes that are coming down the line that we can kind of see on the horizon aren't well reflected in the current KUs. And we like to, I don't want our knowledge units to become stale and find ourselves in the position we did a few years ago where the CNSS standards were not evolving and we're no longer meeting our needs. So this effort is designed to develop new KUs that can be recommended to the program office, and we will then take those and coordinate them throughout our in NSA and throughout with our government partners. And then we'll publish a new list. Now, for those of you that are mentors or you're working with candidates, our standard policy has been, if I were to publish, let's say, a new KU list this fall in September, and we have schools that are on the verge of applying, they will not be held accountable for that new KU list until the following September. So that any schools that are in the process of either redesignating or pursuing a new designation would not be impacted by changes to the KU list. Where we would like to get with this is that we have an annual cycle where we have the wiki that Houston is managing, and we have the committee who's looking at new topics, and we have a definable process where the committee meets. There's a identified timeline to make recommendations to the PMO. We have a couple of months to review those, and then at some point, maybe not in July, maybe it's in September, but you get the idea. We want to have an annual process where we know during certain months we're going to be reviewing the KUs and then updating the list. I don't want to say publish a new list because much of it won't change, but any new things that have been developed throughout the year, we will add to the list at a predictable time in the year. Okay, let's go to the next one. Just like with the KUs, we think that there is a need to refresh and update the curriculum that we have available to the community. As many of you know, we've, through the CAE program, we've started the SETI initiative, helping minority schools start cyber programs. Insight has a program where they're helping schools develop new programs. And so there's always a need for curriculum in the subject of cybersecurity education. And so what we would like to do with this committee is I also do a inventory of what's available, what's in Clark, what's in our new CAE directory, what do the CAEs have that they would willingly share to help new programs or help existing programs evolve. What is the faculty development team doing? We issued a grant last year for faculty development, and they are developing curriculum and programs that they are providing to the people that go through that committee. So we really want to look in every nook and cranny and identify where materials are available, and then either list them in Clark, which is a repository, or in the new directory, which is simply a list of what's available, and then look at where are the gaps. And then we would look to the committee to identify the most critical gaps and collaborate within the community to have curriculum developed to meet those most critical requirements. We'd like to, as with most of what we do, we would like to have the committee working with the program office so that we know what's going on and we know what's being produced. But eventually the objective would be to have this new material available through the Clark repository or through the CAE directory. So this will be a 2-year grant. As you noticed in the solicitation, we're asking all proposals to address a 3rd-year option. Should funding be available and we decide we need additional time to work any one of these initiatives, that would allow us to move into a 3rd year without having to start back with a whole new solicitation and a whole new grant proposal. The program office would very much like to concentrate on investing in initiatives and programs that we've already started rather than launching into even broader areas, because we're already working in workforce development, we're working in curriculum development, we're working in faculty development, we're building a new K-12, and we're trying to ensure that you all, as members of the community, have the resources that you need to address competency and all of those things. So we really don't want to start any new lines of effort, although as the years go by, we definitely would like to engage more of you in the community in participating in some of those efforts. Next slide, please. So we have had for several years a CAE-CO summer program. Now that CO has merged with the rest of our program, we are managing that summer program out of our program office. And under this initiative, we would like to put together a team of schools who will work with the CAE-CD Community of Practice, the program office, and our federal partners to design and implement a CD summer program. So we would spend the next academic year designing that, and then in fiscal year 23, we would execute it for the first summer. And then our plan is that the PMO would assume management of that program, similar to what we do with the CO summer program. Ensure is in there in dotted lines because Ensure is also a development program for students. And we will be building out Ensure over the next couple of years so that there will be opportunities for research students in the summers. Perhaps not initially at the same extent that we have the other 2 programs, but if this goes well and funding is available, we might also expand into a research summer program. We'd like to be able to offer summer programs for all of our students in all of the designated program paths, but we're trying not to grow too fast and create a sustainment issue. We want to be sure that we can continue what we've already done before we launch into new areas. So this CD summer program, we would like to do similar to what we do with the CO summer program, but we'll leave it up to this committee to recommend to us what that ought to look for. the CO summer program has an academic element where the students come in and they work as a cohort. They have instruction for a period of weeks, and then they're presented with a problem that they work with within NSA for a few weeks before they go back to school. With the CD program, I think this gives us an opportunity to perhaps work with some of our partner agencies and place students. We could potentially place students in smaller cohorts across the government after they've maybe all gone through an academic program together at the beginning of the summer. But again, we'll leave that up to this team to make recommendations to us as to what that ought to look like. Okay. Last slide. So this last opportunity, it can be focused in one of three areas. We're not looking for anybody to do all three of these. We want the proposals to focus on one of these three lines of effort. The first opportunity would be, well, let me go back. The thing that all three of these have in common is that our intention is to provide seed money and assistance to launch a program with the intention that the local community, local government, local industry, and academic institutions would continue the program with local resources once our grant runs out. The first line of effort would be in a community where there is no community-based cyber education program. And this would be an opportunity to create a program in the high schools, perhaps dual credit with a CAE and a local school system, where you would define what the needs of the community are and then propose how that community would be developed. In all three of these cases, the reason the slide says commitment letter is that in order to qualify for the third year option, your coalition would have to provide us with a commitment letter from your government and industry sponsors 60 days prior to the expiration of the period of performance. And so in this particular timeline, we're assuming that we would issue the grant sometime in August this year. And it would be a 2-year grant that would expire then at the end of the summer in 23. And we would need a commitment letter from the local community partners by, say, the beginning of the summer of 23 in order to authorize a third option year, again, assuming that we have the funding to support that. The second opportunity would be to work with the local community to establish an economic community. We have seen communities doing this. RAMPS, for instance, was a program that NICE sponsored a couple of years ago. We've seen some communities where there was a severe loss of workforce or loss of jobs with the workforce needing to be repurposed. And they were able to leverage cybersecurity as an economic development opportunity within a community. You can define community as a town or a certain geographic area around a CA institution, or maybe a combination of counties or a state, whatever works for your vision. You can define what community means. But the point is that it would be in all three of these opportunities, what I would like to see is that we demonstrate, again, the power of the CAEs to have an impact on the needs of communities across the nation. And if we're successful in this, then perhaps we can secure funding on a recurring basis to lend our expertise in other communities and develop cybersecurity as a driver across the nation. The third group would be what we're calling a critical infrastructure coalition, and this would be looking at how a community or a a larger geographic area recovers from a critical failure of an infrastructure. So let's say that you have a power grid that supports multiple states and there is a major storm and it knocks out one of the key nodes of the power grid and you have a massive loss of electricity power across multiple states. I don't know how many of you were around about 25, 30 years ago. That happened when a node was knocked out in Canada and Ohio and several other states, because I was living in Ohio at the time, lost power in one fell swoop just because one um, station had a problem and there was a domino effect. So when that kind of thing happens, communities, states aren't always prepared to understand the different authorities of each state, the governor's authorities, the National Guard, what national resources are available, how all of that works together, and the cybersecurity issues involved in all of this. So the idea is that you would create a regional coalition that would leverage the CAE's expertise in cybersecurity to assist a state government and perhaps local industry to come up with a mechanism where, should such an event happen in your region, you would all be prepared to address that crisis. And it doesn't have to be power grid. It could be some other critical infrastructure. It could be transportation, ports, name medical communities, name a critical infrastructure, and you can build this coalition around a crisis in that particular area. So that kind of covers how we think all of these efforts would fit into the greater CAE program. As we pursue funding for the future and we look at sustainment of the program, there are some parts of the program that are intrinsically NSA's responsibility because it goes to, those requirements go to maintaining the core of the program office, the administrative structure we've set up for bringing in new schools for the community, those kinds of things. But then there are efforts that we have been able to launch because Congress has given us the power to leverage the CAEs to demonstrate what we can do for the nation. And those kinds of sustainment funds, I don't think we can expect to come from one place. But in order to convince those that have the funding and who are potentially going to invest, we need as a CAE community to demonstrate how the schools can become the engine that drives some of those national capabilities. By the virtue of what you all can do and what we've invested in building this community, we can do things that would, at a lower cost, that would cost the nation much more if they had to start from scratch. And so that's the story we're trying to tell, and that's where I think you all have demonstrated time and again that you can have a huge impact when we organize as a community across the nation. So I will take questions now. Alice is on the line, so if it's a grant type question, I'll let her answer. I've learned from experience that when I answer a question, I always ask Alice if I'm right. So if you want to, I think what we'd like you to do is type your questions in the chat, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I've got to change my glasses. Would a coalition be increasing rank? Yes. If you have a group of schools, so my concern is that we maintain a single point of entry for any students that are trying to use Ring and the K-12 initiatives. So we would entertain a proposal from a coalition, but we would, and you can subaward to other institutions, but we want to be sure that there would be a very clear registration process and a single leader for that effort, so that we don't have confusion both within the students that we're targeting or any partners outside the CAE program, like CISA or DHS or NICE or any of those, would have a single point to collaborate with, even though it might be a coalition actually making things work and, you know, answering any questions. Does that, Jesse, does that answer your question? Alice,
Yes,
am I right?
you are right.
Okay. I'm just a little paranoid. All right. Is that the only question? I was beginning to think I was talking to the ether out there. Ah, okay. Yeah, so the reason with, for instance, the teacher grants that we focused on a region was to minimize the number of states that any one group of schools that's developing that program would have to collaborate with. For curriculum development, certainly you could have geographically diverse coalition of schools. For the last effort, we would like to see a larger geographic area. So if we had a couple of states that are all on the border of regions, then yeah, you'd be coming from two different regions, but you're still geographically clustered. John, did I answer your question? Okay. Alice, I'm not going to ask you every time this time. If I'm wrong, just jump in.
Okay.
Yes, Joshua, you can submit for more than one initiative. I would say to you that pay attention to the paragraph where we asked you to consider what else you're signed up for. And the same would apply to making multiple proposals. You would have to demonstrate that you could handle all of that in addition to your teaching or whatever else you have to do. Alice, this might be a good point for you to talk about the additional requirements.
Oh, yes. So we will be sending something out probably next week. Give me a chance, because next Tuesday all the CYSP applications start coming in. So we're a little swamped, but we will get out a document that talks about you identifying current and potential future federal grants, what you're currently working on, and obviously what you are bidding on, as a way to kind of gauge what your time limit is, and are you stretching yourself too thin. This is coming from higher up, so we have no choice. We have to put it in there. Art had mentioned the NSF model or the NSF document. If you want to use that, that's great. That's probably what I'll send out. I got this requirement last minute, so I haven't had a chance to really research it and get you guys a template and things like that. With that last question, so you can submit a proposal for each of the initiative for whichever designation you have. So if you only have the CD designation, you submit one proposal with a response to each of the 8 initiatives if you want. It could be one initiative, it could be 2, any number. If you have the CAE-R or CAE-CO, same thing. Sorry, I read John's question. I'll get to that. So if you have different PIs for each of those designations, that PI would have to be involved some way in the grant. They don't have to, or I keep saying PI, I apologize. The CAE point of contact on campus. That person needs to be involved in some way. They don't have to be in a paid position. It can be, it's up to you. We have had some schools try to circumvent the CAE designation and share this solicitation out to other parts of the campus that have no clue what a CAE is. And so we're trying to eliminate that possibility, because you guys have done all the work. You guys are the CAEs. You should get the credit. You should get the little carrot to go for this funding. With that said, we encourage everybody and anybody who wants to submit a proposal. Do not think that we already have, oh, so-and-so is going to get this or so-and-so, so I'm not going to bother. Please do not think that. We get independent reviewers. They review your proposals. They make their recommendations to us, and then we award based on that. So it's not Lynn and I sitting in a room saying, oh, yeah, we like so-and-so this week and they're going to get a grant. It's not like that. Sorry, Tony. And so we encourage everybody who wants to get a grant, please apply. And I hate to have to say this, but if we find out that schools are telling other schools not to apply because they're going to go for that grant, no, that doesn't fly with me. So if we find out that a CAE is telling other CAEs, oh, don't apply for that one because I'm going to do it and this is what I want to do and I want to get it. No, everybody has a chance. So with that, I see John asked the question, will these grant be subawards through Tony or direct contract with NSA? If you are the lead of the coalition, the grant will come to you. If for some reason Tony puts in a coalition and he has subawards, then they're going to be subbed through Tony. John, if you put in a coalition and you have subs, the money all comes to you and then you sub out.
Yeah. If any of you are thinking about proposing and you want to build off of something that the community is currently providing, like you want to have webinars and you want the community to run that, you would need to coordinate that with Tony, because if there are any additional costs above and beyond what he's already programmed for, you would need to account for those costs in your proposal. Don't assume that just because he's the community that he'll be able to support anything you need. Some things you need may be relatively small and it's already within his grant, but if you have any doubt, get in touch with him and make sure of that and accommodate. Tony can be a subaward too if there's something they're doing that you want to leverage. The only other thing I would say about the question about making multiple proposals is that please don't give us one proposal for 2 or 3 different initiatives. Because of the way the solicitation is written, it needs to be a separate submission for each of the initiatives. So even though a lot of the K-12 stuff might fit well together, we broke it up on purpose, so that if some of you only wanted to do one piece of it, you wouldn't have to take on everything.
And to add to that, Lynn, if you do submit multiple proposals to the initiatives, the standard forms like the certifications, the SF 424A and 424, you only need that once. So just combine all those totals and submit that document. I wish we didn't have to use those documents. I don't like them, but policy people overrule me, so we have to submit them.
Okay, so for cybersecurity community development, coalitions should be from a particular region only, or schools from different regions can collaborate. If you look at the CAE regional map, there are states who are next to each other but are in different regions. So when I say region, It was simply a shorthand to ensure that we're distributing the effort across the nation and not to limit you. So, for instance, if you wanted to do a coalition for one of those infrastructures and you're in a state that is in one region and your neighbor state is in a different region, in that case, you could certainly cross regions. We envisioned all of these efforts, all of those community development efforts, to be focused on a community. So I would accept something from multiple regions, but you'd have to explain how that's going to, how that impact is going to work out, because it's not a lot of money to have multiple communities trying to propose under one grant. So you might want to, you'd have to explain how you put together what you put together. Teacher development, would a multi-region proposal be considered? Again, I would consider it, but you would have to demonstrate. So when I say teacher development and we're going to give one in each region, the requirement is that if you're in Ohio and you're going to represent your region, then your responsibility is to coordinate with all of the states in your region for teacher development. If you have a school in the Midwest region and a school in the Northeast region and you want to compete and you want to combine them, you could take that on, but then you have to account for all of the states in each of those regions. So it was designed to compensate for all of the different state requirements. And that's not to say that Indiana and Illinois, being in the same Midwest region, that would have similar teacher requirements. They may not, but if you notice, we prorated the amounts for each of those grants based on the region where you're located, because, for instance, the Northeast region, having so many smaller states, have more states to contend with than the Northwest region or the Southwest region. So just bear that in mind when you're putting your proposal together. So if any of you, if I'm answering these questions and you don't feel like you got an adequate answer, I didn't understand your question, just ask another question. Can you please expand on option 3, regional cybersecurity critical infrastructure? I don't know how much to expand that, Lori. Pick a critical infrastructure. If you're in Northwest Kentucky, for instance, there's a lot of healthcare going on. If you're in North Carolina, there's a lot of financial infrastructure. If you're in Texas, there's a lot of oil and gas production infrastructure going on. And so, pick what is important to your region and your industry and build around that. I just saw Tony. How many GameStop shares did you buy? Is there any specific consideration as an MSI or HI? It's not in this case. We're not giving extra points for MSI, but certainly if you're, one of the things we left open in the community building effort was that you could, as a CAE, take the lead, work with your state and local governments, and engage with other schools who are near to you who are not CAEs. So for instance, last time around, we had a proposal where we had a university who was proposing to partner with several MSIs in their within 60 miles of their location. And that would be an intriguing proposal because you would be touching on one of the identified issues we're interested in. But we aren't giving extra points if the lead institution is an MSI this time around. When are you looking to launch the CD summer program? I think the solicitations said summer of 23. I'll look it up while I'm talking because I happen to have a copy right here next to me. Oh, look at that. I opened to the right page. The coalition will work with the program office to define the summer program between grant award in summer 21 and July 22. Students will be recruited between August 22 and February 23, and the first program should be conducted in the summer of 23. The grant would expire at the end of the summer in 23. And that's the last question that I see. Are there any other questions? Wow, Alice, we're early.
I'm shocked.
Any other questions you have for us? We haven't gotten together in a long time, so. Hey, Kim.
She's on mute.
Yeah, you're all on mute. Are they allowed to unmute themselves or do we have to unmute them?
Well, Kim, she's not, but others, yes.
Hey, you stinker. I was going to talk about the weather. It's cold in Texas. It's very cold in Texas. It's supposed to be
I
in
bet
the
it's colder here.
single digits. How cold is it there?
About 28.
Let me
Well, when I came in, it was 28. I don't know what it is.
20. It's 30, but wait, it's changing. It's 30.
Yeah, we're 34, 33 here. That's pretty cold.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's pretty cold for San Antonio.
Yes.
Kim, wait for 2 more days. You'll
I
see.
know. I know. You're gonna get it before me up there. Boy.
Okay.
Okay, Ram is asking, any other faculty development RFP? The current grant runs through next year, and so we're not planning to issue a new one this year. We'll look at everything that happens under the current offering, and then we'll decide what we want to continue beyond the end of. That grant will expire in August of 22, so we have time in the next fiscal year to issue something to carry on those efforts next year. The reason we went ahead and issued an additional K-12 grant on top of last year's was that we're trying to look out for the future and make sure that there isn't a screeching halt at the end of the current grant. It was 6 degrees in New York this morning. That's why I'm in Maryland. JC, that's just smart. It's 74 in Arizona. Have a nice Friday.
Thank
Those
you.
of you that are off Monday, enjoy.
Thank you. Y'all have a good weekend. Bye.
All right. Tony, can you give me a call when you have a minute?